you do a population exchange, it's very hard to reverse the change because you basically just recreate the problem even worse when you try to reverse it. And this is one of the problems with the Palestinians having the right to return, because they want to take up space. They want to, come return, and they're a much larger population now. I don't think Palestinians can ever get the right of return, because as the Vox mentioned, there's over 7 million. Those 700,000 have now become 7 million in terms of their descendants. I don't think there's no room. They can't come there, and Israel still remain a majority state. So the only solution to me is, if you think that Israel is the cause of the refugee problem, are financial reparations. And Israel does not actually have as much money as a lot of people think. We'd all love to get to an area where, ethnicity, religion, and all of that stuff matters very little. But to me, it's kind of crazy to expect people to be like, well, you guys have to accept everyone, and then watch that majority population turn it into an Arab pan-state where Jews become second-class citizens. And okay, you guys should just have to deal with that, right? You could just have to take the hit so you have the moral headway. It makes sense in a world where there are tons of ethnic and national and religious states, right, to at least have one for your own where you're safe, at least for just one country. And I think that that's totally valid. And this is why I get really scared that Israel is going to become an apartheid state. And all those lefties are going to turn out to be right when they criticize Israel, calling it apartheid. Because if they keep building the settlement and more settlements happen, it's going to be more and larger of a human rights disaster to pull out and to get rid of the Jews from the region and give them back to the Palestinians. So it means that the only solution you're going to have is a one-state solution, where everything becomes an Israeli state. The big problem with that is that for Israel to continue to exist as Israel and not just, become a non-Jewish state, and that's just a typical Arab country in the Middle East with an Arab majority population, Israel, and to remain with Western values and all those things, Jews need to remain the majority of the population. It's a hard place to live, especially when compared to other Western countries. It's very expensive, and there's very little space. The idea of a 3-bedroom house, you don't get that shit in Israel. You do not get a 3-bedroom house in Israel. That is something that is only allowed for the rich, the very, very rich. In Israel, the most you will get is a shitty apartment. Everyone lives in shitty apartments, okay? So the only place you're going to get a house, if you want a house and you want your kids to be able to have green space and be able to run, is in the settlements.